think so. Whenever?
Yeah, whenever you're ready, we'll start rock and rolling.
Okay, hello. This is Lauren and Garrett again. We're going to be talking more about me this time and my modeling adventure. So I guess we'll get right into it.
Let's do it.
So my mom put me into modeling, actually, shout out to her, when I was 12, my first agency. And it really just kind of stuck. I wasn't good at school, didn't like school, didn't go to college. I didn't even take the SAT. I just knew that this is what I was going to do my whole life. So school wasn't ever, I didn't care about it.
Yeah, definitely not.
So I moved to California when I was 18 years old, signed with a manager and an agent, and I got some good roles. I booked my first job the first month I was there. I booked a featured extra on iCarly, actually. And according to my manager, that was a big deal because nobody books their first job in their first month. So I thought that was awesome.
Right?
Yeah. So I got some good work. I did some small commercial things, some print things. Got super depressed. I was really homesick. I had my first real love, my first boyfriend that I was trying to keep the long distance relationship thing going, which was really difficult. And developed a really bad eating disorder. I would go to a casting and they would tell me that I was too big. So I would drop 10 pounds, go to the next casting the next week, and I was too small. So it fucked me up mentally. It really did.
Yeah.
So by this point, it's been like a year and I was just over it, really. So my manager told me to go home for the summer because nothing really happens in the summer. He gave me a month to go home, see my family, spend time with my friends, my boyfriend, and just get my head back together. So during that time, I was getting ready to go home and I got a casting for Power Rangers, the pink Power Ranger. So it was a really big deal, super excited.
Can I interject real fast? I just want to share this because I think it's funny. When I was a child, like 3 years old, the first girl that I ever had a crush on was the pink Power Ranger. And this in Lauren's stories before her and I ever connected. So that it just is a kind of irony for me, like that, like my first crush and my last crush are like both the pink Power Ranger. So I thought that was kind of.
Anyways, so I went to this casting and it went well. I had my flight booked for the next week and I got a callback for the role the next week. So I had to cancel my flight, reschedule it for the following week, went to the callback, got called back again. And so I canceled my flight, rescheduled it for the following week again, went to the callback. This went on for a month. The whole month that I was supposed to go home and get my shit back together, I was going to callbacks for the pink Power Ranger. And I was thinking for sure that I was gonna get it. We went down all the way to testing, which means it was me and another girl. So they were deciding between us. We had both had to sign contracts. It was shooting in New Zealand, so we had to sign moving contracts and moving deals and all this stuff, both of us. So I got a call from my manager and told me that they went with the other girl because she wasn't 18 and I had more rights than she did, which essentially meant that they had to pay me more than her. So I didn't get the job. So at this point, I'm like over it, completely over it. I told my manager that I wanted to go home. I wasn't happy. I had spent all this time here when I was supposed to be home. I was just mentally devastated. Homesick, depressed, struggling really bad with bulimia. Moved home and my boyfriend, I found out, was cheating on me and was in a different relationship within 2 weeks that I moved home. So I spent 2 years just, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't sign with a new agency. I wasn't modeling, I wasn't acting, I wasn't doing anything. I was really depressed in my parents' house, not doing anything. Like, I've stayed in our back bedroom for 2 years straight. So then fast forward, I'm in a better space. Garrett and I finally meet. Not meet, we've known each other our entire life, but we connect, we start dating. I sign with a new agency, things are going well. I work, everything's fine then. Fast forward, him and I break up. We're friends now at this point, and I'm in a terrible, terrible, toxic, controlling, just really bad relationship. And I get an email for a music video casting in Charlotte. So I'm shooting with David's Bridal during the day, I leave David's Bridal, I go to this casting, and this guy that is holding the casting tells me that he's interested in managing me artistically. So he tells me that he wants to meet with me the next day. I go back home, I have to shoot with David's again that day, shoot with David's, go back to Charlotte that evening, meet with this guy, and he tells me that he wants to manage me, and he asked me to come to New York the following week, which was Valentine's Day, which is a big deal in that relationship because I'm missing Valentine's Day. Oh my God. So I go to New York and we discuss contracts and we're just building rapport. I come home, I go to Miami with him 2 more times after that, just to build a relationship essentially, see if we want to work together because it's going to be a long contract. This contract is extensive. It's 5 years. Basically, this contract means that he owns me and everything to do with me. I don't have a life anymore. I am his. That's what this contract meant. And at the time, it sounded great. He was telling me all these amazing things that he was going to do for me. I wasn't going to have to go to any more castings. I didn't have to do any more auditions. He was going to develop and produce everything for me, so I didn't have to do any of that. Everything sounded amazing. It was perfect. Everything that I ever wanted. So the 2 times that I went to Miami, we were in a very nice apartment. I had my own room, my own bathroom, my own space, my own balcony. Him and I had a great relationship. I really liked him. Contract was a lot, but like, he had my best interest, so cool.
He did not have her best interest.
Yeah. In the airport, I signed this contract, and I feel like every model or every actor has fallen for a scam at some point in their life. And this was the fucking scam of all scams. Not even, I don't even, scam.
It was way more than a scam.
Yeah.
It was manipulative.
So,
Different level.
so I signed this contract, feeling great, super excited about the future. The next time I went to Miami, everything changed. Everything changed. We weren't in the same apartment. We were in his personal apartment. Great place. It was in Brickell still. Really nice apartment, very small. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, very tiny. And he gave me his bedroom to stay in. I made it very obvious that I wasn't comfortable. I asked him if we could go back to the other apartment because I just felt more comfortable there. And he said that he had some kind of agent that dealt with all of his properties and leased them out. And he said that this agency messed up that week and we couldn't go back because it was already booked for the week. So we had to stay there. So in this apartment, there was 3 doors. The entrance, the bedroom door, and the bathroom door. And all 3 of these entrances had like thumb pad keys, really. So I couldn't lock the bedroom from my side, but he could come in from his side. Same with the bathroom, same with the entrance of the apartment. So he would come into my room every single morning and get in the bed with me and like talk about the day, which it was weird. It was weird. The whole thing was weird.
Yeah. Telling me none of these things as her best friend.
No, I made sure not to tell Garrett any of these things. I was very vague with the details of this contract and this manager because I knew Garrett would pull some shit because he had in the past. Rewind. So I went to Vegas with a different agency. This was a few years back. And I was in Vegas working and I was very intoxicated. I was talking.
She put herself in a bad situation and best friend Garrett defended her when most people would probably not. And it just led to her being very upset with me for a while. Thought I may never speak to her again. Our
relationship, I thought, would never recover from this situation.
Sure, yeah, we both thought that.
Yeah,
I was sitting alone in the airport waiting for her, flying home from Las Vegas, like sitting at the bar drinking by myself, like. My best friend is never gonna talk to me, and at this time, like, I'm still in love with her, right? I want to be with her. She's dating somebody else. It's not gonna happen at the time, and like, it's just a terrible situation.
It was bad.
And so that's why she hid all of these things from me, because she knew that if she told me, oh yeah, he came in my room and got into bed with me every morning, I would have been like, what the fuck? No.
That's not okay. We shouldn't be doing that, probably, but.
So that was the least of everything to come.
Yeah, plus my relationship too. So imagine being in a very toxic relationship where this person is super controlling and then having another man own you. So my life just fucking was terrible.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's see. My contract, let's talk about that for a second. I had to travel to Miami 1, 2, or 3 weeks of every month. And when I wasn't traveling with him, I had to have meetings with him every night. It started off with 3 meetings, or 3 nights a week at 11 o'clock p.m. Why 11 o'clock p.m.? Because he didn't want me to hang out with my friends, hang out with my boyfriend, or go out or do anything outside of fun. So we had our meetings at 11 o'clock for an hour or an hour and a half, 12:30. So my night was done. That lasted like a couple weeks. Then it went to 4 nights a week. Then I went to 5 nights a week. Then I went to 6 nights a week. So 6 nights a week I was having meetings with this man for an hour. And then I would travel to go see him and work. So we would have meetings like 3.5 hours, 4 hours long about what we're gonna do, what we're developing, and every time we would take a step forward, I would get stressed out and he would take that as, well, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna work because you're stressed out, so we have to take a step. It just never, anything that he ever said never lined up. It just never worked. Never happened. Everything he said never happened. He would track my miles on the car. I would have to tell him exactly how many miles I drove every day, because if I was driving too many miles, then I wasn't working hard enough on what we were doing. So text too. I know that he was reading my text somehow. I don't know why. Something happened in my life during this time that was very personal, and somehow he found out, he knew. And it went under breach of contract. So it was a whole different thing. Breach of contract. There was no way for him to know these details about my life unless he read my text messages. No way. Absolutely no way.
And she talked about breach of contract. Now, the few things that she did tell me as her then best friend are, you know, that she's in this contract for a long period of time that she can't get out of. She's super stressed about it. She hates the situation that she's in. She doesn't tell me any of the pressures that he's putting her under from the other side of it, but like the meetings at 11 o'clock at night is crazy. And the way that he would control what she could share with who she could share. There's certain things she couldn't tell me.
I couldn't hang out with certain people.
He wanted me, and several of her friends did this, and I'm hard-headed,
that's
so I'm
right,
not gonna
I forgot about that. Totally forgot about that.
sign an agreement to basically say that we weren't going to share anything about
non-disclosure agreements. All my friends, all my close personal friends.
Yeah, and then I don't know if at this point in your story yet, but you had a different name at certain points.
That's another thing too. We had a different name for myself that was like going into the government to legally change my name, and there was no way. So another breach of contract that I went under was I had I think it was you that I had told this name to, and I wasn't allowed to tell anybody this name. So that was a breach of contract. How would he know that I told somebody this name unless he read my text messages?
Right.
So that was crazy. He would always try and like hold my hand and kiss me on the mouth and things to that nature, and I told him I wasn't comfortable with it.
He would say it was his culture.
Yeah, it's just a culture thing. Like I'm sorry that I did. It won't happen again. Happens again. Happens again. So there was 2 separate times that we had a meeting, and I told him that I wasn't happy. I didn't want to do this anymore. I'm mentally not okay. And I didn't want to be signed with him anymore. And there was a fine in order for me to terminate the contract, I had to pay $75,000 to terminate and be done.
And she wasn't really making much money because he was in total control of what she was doing.
Another point I wanted to make, I made $0. Zero. This entire time I was with him for 2 years. Our contract was 5 years. I made $0. He made me terminate all my contract with all my other agencies. I wasn't allowed to work elsewhere. I wasn't allowed to do anything outside of him and his work. but I made $0 this entire time. How he thought that I was living, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was living off of my savings.
That's one detail she told me was the $75,000. And at this point in my life, if you watch the last video, I'm Goldsham Garrett and like selling the fuck out of gym memberships. And I'm like, $75,000, I can do that. Like, don't worry, like I can do that. Like I remember thinking like, I gotta save her, right? Because it was terrible, you know, pressure on her and watching her struggle, knowing how terrible her personal relationship was. And I already hated that, and boy did he hate me. And so like, we already butted heads on that, and like, had to be hidden in our relationship and hide it. We ever hung out and even talked at all, and like she would follow and block and then unblock me and different things to please her boyfriend, and then see her struggle with this other man on top of that was difficult on me on the outside. And I only got a brief glimpse of that, just so some things, even as she's sharing these, like I don't know all the details of still, because she kept them from me, because it was tough on her for sure.
And I would tell my parents these things, and my parents had been dealing with me in this bad relationship for a while. So they're thinking, we are going back to what happened in my last relationship. And I essentially moved home for a guy, not for, but it had a big part of it. And we're just repeating this. And this is a great thing for you. And you're just messing it all up because of this guy. And that's what they thought, which was true. He put a lot more pressure on me than I should have. I couldn't tell him any of these things because he would freak out. I would have to hide. My entire life was hidden because I couldn't tell him. I couldn't tell my parents because they didn't believe me. I couldn't tell anybody because he would read my text messages and know that I was telling, or I just had to keep it all inside, and it just wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
So another point, we were casting for a music video that he had another talent that he was signed, or was signed with him. And I cast one of my friends actually for this music video. Still to this day regret that. One of my best friends casts her as the lead role. And she flew to New York with me and him. He made us stay in separate hotels. We couldn't hang out with each other. We couldn't talk. We couldn't do anything. We finally, the last night that we were there, we finished shooting this music video that I know now, to this day, went nowhere. This artist that he signed and we did all this work for is nowhere to be seen. I don't know, he's nothing. And this man has been signed with him for like 5 years at that point, so I don't know where it is now. So we were in this apartment in New York, and I had gone to bed, and they were shooting B-roll for the music video. And it was months later that she told me that he pulled some weird shit on her. And she knew then that, I've been telling her these things for a while, but she knew then that like I had to get out of this contract. So, but there's nothing I could do. I was stuck. I was truly 100% stuck in this contract.
Yeah. And you could tell her whole demeanor changed. You guys can tell when she talks about it. You can see it was hard on her. And the fact that she had to stay trapped within herself and not share. Like, we went back to Brickell recently. We went on an adventure, the adventures of Garrett and Lauren, you know. And we went back to Brickell, and walking through some of the places that she spent time, like, you could visibly see how it affected her. So like, I could only imagine dealing with it in the moment.
Yeah, it was really bad. My hair stopped growing. I was very unhealthy. Like it was the worst part of my life for sure, easily. So I was in that contract for 2 years out of 5. What happened was we had been working that day, we had meetings. So we were doing this long meeting. It was probably like 4 hours long. That night we had gone out and I had been drinking, came back to the apartment, and he sexually assaulted me. Thank God. It was literally a blessing in disguise, because I flew home the next day, and then I called my friend, and she told me exactly what to do. And I knew that we had a meeting on Sunday, 2 days later. So I called him and told him, made him, I was recording the whole thing, basically made him verbally tell me that he knew why I was doing what I was doing and what he did. And I told him that I wanted to terminate the contract with no penalties, no fees, no fines, and that was it. Or I was gonna take legal action. And that's what I did. And I got out of the contract.
Finally.
Yeah, blessing, absolute blessing.
Yeah. That's proof in and of itself that even in bad moments, things that seem bad to be sexually assaulted by somebody that's in a position of power, was the thing that she needed to escape.
I knew it immediately. I was like, oh my God, thank God.
He crossed the line
Thank
finally.
God you finally, like, really crossed the line. You really did it this time.
What's funny is, and this is the difference between men and women, is that he crossed the line so far ago, and this is part of the reason why we are getting into some of the model things that we do now. But as a young girl, even before she grew into a woman, men position themselves in these places to take advantage of girls like that. And Lauren being naive, Lauren being scared to hurt somebody's feelings or make someone mad, would allow herself to be put in positions that were terrible for her. And we personally know other people that have done the same things, and it's part of the reason why we're kind of pushing into model management, so to speak, even though it's not my forte, but like, she's got the experience and this story that, you know, makes it so that people need that help sometimes, and she was taken advantage of, and people put themselves in a position of power in order to do that, and that's a sad reality of her career and her market. And so that's kind of the reason why we're getting into some of the things that we are in the market.
Yeah.
So she finally got out of it though, so that's good.
I got out of it, signed with a new agency, and I've been with that agency, Maryland's agency. They're phenomenal, best agency I've ever been with. Been with them ever since, and
and it's not just Maryland. She's got About Face and several other that she worked with. So she's been able to expand her career a lot, and that's been cool to watch.
About Face model. I've been with About Face though forever. Literally since I was 17 years old, I've been with About Face.
Yeah.
And he made me terminate that contract. Super difficult for me. And whenever I came back, finally I re-signed with them. I love them too. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Both of those agencies, I highly credited.
And now she's been able to expand into more than just modeling and acting. You have the outdoor, you have the racetrack and stuff that you do. Lots of different things that have been able to expand since that.
I have so many different things that I do.
Yeah.
Since that, everything's great now. Him and I reconnected, obviously.
Yeah,
I
talked a lot about that last time.
Yeah.
Our story is interesting because we truly were, best friends, and people didn't understand that. She talks about the toxic relationship. He hated me. I hated him. There was many times where, it was not pretty. Let's just say that. And for us to reconnect again, like I talked about last video, when she was still in a relationship that and this is one thing about Lauren that you guys may learn more soon, is that she doesn't like to make people upset. And so she's in this relationship that, as her best friend, I know she's not satisfied in, but she won't say that she's not satisfied in.
My family loved
because
him.
her family liked the guy.
But I'm not like my family.
And so for the first time in her life, her family liked the guy.
Yeah.
Every other relationship she had, including myself when we were younger, they're like, no, bad.
The devil.
Right, devil eyes, right? And so for the first time, she had somebody that her family supported, and so it was difficult for her to say, hey, I'm not happy in this relationship. Instead, she would just smile on the outside and pretend like everything was cool and go back in. And that is a tendency that you'll see in her, is that instead of making somebody else upset or doing something outside, she'll just smile and nod and that's another, I think, value of our relationship. You guys will get to see more and more, is that sometimes she doesn't necessarily have the backbone that I do, and I sometimes give her that. And so that's another reason why she's been able to expand herself. Her confidence has grown a ton on social media lately. You guys can tell on Instagram. She's talking more openly and sharing more about some of her weaknesses, because I was trying to get her to see, like, that's valuable.
I've never talked about any of these things.
Yeah.
Never talked about any of it, ever, openly, publicly, never.
She had to take quite a bit of time to, like, really think about it, write some notes. You said it brought up some old memories of
Yeah, I have filed all of these things very back, deep in my closet, very deep.
And that's another thing that's crazy to me, again, to talk about men versus women, is how, like, she talked about with her manager how he crossed the line and she still stepped back, separated herself from the situation, then spoke to someone else, and then handled it on a third day. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm like, you didn't freak out in the moment?
No,
like, you didn't
even when it happened, like, I knew it was happening and I was completely frozen.
And that's crazy for me to think about. Like, and I guess I've kind of experienced a few similar things, as far as, like, being in Hollywood as a straight man in Hollywood, California. Leave that as you may be. I've been hit on uncomfortably a few times in my life. So, like, just to think about, we went to an Avril concert and I guess some guy let's just say misread the signs.
You're at an Avril Lavigne concert by yourself at this point.
Lauren and Bay had separated to go back to the bathroom, and then this dude walks up and just...
Bay is my best friend, by the way, not B-A-E, B-A-Y.
Yeah, B-A-Y, yeah, her best friend Bay. this dude walks up and just full grabs my crotch, right? And I, being big Garrett, I like grab the dude and throw him like this.
I hear him. I'm like way over there peeing, and I
like,
hear
what
his
the-
voice. I'm like, that's Garrett. We gotta go.
This dude hits the ground like, oh shit, skedaddles, fucking daddles out of there. So like I've been, like I can understand a little bit, but my instant reaction was to like outburst, as you can tell in that story, right? And like for her to internalize that and deal with things that is just, it's crazy for me to think about that pressure. I couldn't.
I'm an extreme introvert,
Yeah,
so
that's true.
It took me like 3 days to like writing down my notes. I know exactly what I'm gonna say on the call. I'm like shaking. It's terrible.
I got to hear a little bit of the phone call that you
Yeah.
recorded, and it's definitely
It's
tough
fun.
to imagine.
Good stuff. Yeah, that's where we are now.
Yeah, now here we are. We're doing a little bit of this model management stuff like we talked about, and you guys will see more and more coming on social media. So really, I'm gonna take over a little bit to talk a little bit more about what we got coming, and you guys will see this in the next few videos. But so highly effective agency. We chose the term agency because she comes through the model background that I was always doing agency. A representative of someone else. So she, through that story, you can tell, and sometimes in her life needed a representative of somebody that can play that middle ground and maybe be that backbone as for a young girl that she didn't have, someone to defend her and look out for her best interests, and then in turn be able to provide work and help somebody scale themselves that he should have been doing as her manager, right? And so like everybody can hear through that story the things that he did wrong, and so we are wanting to use her story and her experience, my ability to sell shit and lead people, grow and develop not only models but people as sales reps, all these things. Any skill, talent like those, we want to help you scale and move outwards with safe, comfortable representation, a backbone that you can lean on. Sometimes that maybe is a little bit too much, Sometimes I'm a little bit of an aggressive guy, believe
That's
it or
where I
not.
come in.
Right? So like sometimes she helps balance me and not be too much. So we're really excited to blend everything you heard in the last video and then now with her background into helping others move forward without some of the hurdles.
Craziness,
Yeah, I would
yeah.
say hurdles or craziness that we faced. So I think that's pretty much everything we have right now, right? We got a lot of adventures coming up. We're gonna see a lot of different things coming from selling stuff, modeling. We like to go, if you look all the way back in the archives to our dating in the past days, we were broke, and
I was working at Hallmark.
I was working at Finish Line, slinging sneakers for less than minimum wage, making commission, and like it was so bad that like at times like we would want to go drinking, like she would buy drinks and stuff like that, and as a man, like especially a man like me, like that hurts, right? And I remember thinking like it's not always about to be like this, right? Like I'm gonna change this, and so now to be in a position where like I can provide for her and we can scale and do business and life on a different level. And we used to do adventures where like we would do free things and go sneak around old trains and went to haunted roads and like old abandoned buildings, and like now we get to travel all over the country and the world and do things that we want to do on our own accord. And so that's what we want to help create for other people, and we're going to document all the things that we go on, all the adventures that we have coming. We're going to eat a lot of good food and talk a lot of shit like we said before, so we're excited to keep talking to you guys. So anything else from you?
Nope.
That's it. All right guys, look
Bye.
forward to it. See ya.